All right, welcome back to the Refractor Rants podcast, a podcast about all things sports cards. I'm one of your hosts, Tommy, aka TV Sports Cards, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Max, aka Cards Max, aka CEO and founder, not co-founder, CEO and founder of Cards Max Enterprises. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Some might say I'm Cards Max Incorporated, not for any specific reason, just because tagging business taglines to your name can be a fun way of spicing up your nomenclature. But I'm great. It is a hot day in Florida today, and it is a hot day in the sports card market.
It's been a while, Max, since we've talked, and I'm very fired up to dive into everything that's happened in the last few weeks. I know that you've been a fan lately, though. The Knicks made the second round. How are you feeling? Not a sports analysis podcast, but also a podcast that encourages fandom and sports tribalism. How are you feeling about that?
I'm doing great. We love to see the home team win, especially when the home team is on the road and becomes the away team, and the away team beats the home team. And we Knicks and six, no Knicks for clicks. I am enjoying Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, even though he's hurt. I'm just enjoying him as a person, figuratively, from the trading card standpoint. I'm holding my Carmelo Anthony in my hand, and I'm going full Knicks fan mode right now.
We are recording this right before game one against the Pacers. So please, let's hope that we're not jinxing the shit out of this. But Max, I did see that you had a pretty sick Jalen Brunson card for sale. Can you give us a little background on what that card is?
Yeah, and I have multiple in the similar theme, but I have four 2024 one of ones from 2022 NBA Flawless, as you may or may not have heard from last week's episode, because we don't know if you may have heard it yet. But Flawless is game used, and Flawless deserves its roses while the roses can still be smelled. Every single relic card is game used, and you can get some very cool patches. And as a tribute to Bill Russell's passing, all NBA players wore a dark green to black 6 patch on their jersey. And in 2022 Flawless, there are multiple one of ones of many different players across a checklist of their game worn Bill Russell patch. And on the left is the player, and on the right is Bill Russell. And I presently own one of ones of this Bill Russell patch for Kristaps Porzingis, Miles Turner, Shaden Sharp, and the aforementioned Jalen Brunson. Not to be confused with Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw your little exchange on Instagram, Max, about the Jalen Brunson. I know you've been kind of shopping it around. You want to tell the people what went down on Instagram DMs about that Jalen Brunson? First of all, sick cards. I'm unreal that you own 4 of them right now. I think that's insane, but also hype. But what was this interaction? I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, and again, not to chastise an individual, but just overall, I think it sums up hobby Instagram as a whole. If you're listening to this, or you know me personally, or Tommy personally, you're into this. Of course, most of our following is based on Twitter. Twitter, I believe, will always harbor the best possible dialogue on sports cards, and definitely gets the best community effect for sports cards. While Instagram, just by nature, is showboating yourself, advertising yourself, promoting yourself, and then some people in your circle or group me might join in by tangent or by association. But I've always found the best connections to be formed on Twitter, and sometimes Instagram can also be more business and transactional. And an example of one of the pitfalls of businesses and transactions who, with an individual, just based off their grammar, I had to assume was a teenager or young adult, inquired about my Jalen Brunson one of one. I said, if you caught my grammar, I did say that there were multiple one of ones for players on the checklist, and or at least I think I did. And that's because, to my knowledge, there is one for the home jersey of the player and one for the away jersey. So they are one of ones, but there are 2
Mm.
copies for each player. So I own a Jalen Brunson Flawless Bill Russell patch, and the other one sold on eBay. And the other one was spelled Jalen Brunson in the title. So is that a real comp? Is that not? Who knows? Open to interpretation. But point being, this person, I received a cold DM from an individual citing this completed sale, and I said Burnson. He's like, yes, and I'm like, I said, the comp that you're using has the player's name misspelled, which you in most contexts wouldn't merit it as a legitimate full market value sale. He says, no, that's how it's spelled. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yes. And I say, Burnson, like a man on fire. I should have said a sun on fire, but like a man on fire. And he's like, yes. And then he sends me a screenshot of Tim typing Jalen Brunson, properly spelled in Google, and then seeing Jalen Brunson. It's like, see, it's properly spelled. And I said, read the listing, read the completed sale that you just sent me. And he says, I see. Which was just,
I'm guessing
again,
the conversation ended after that.
he inquired about he wanted me to be below the Jalen Burnson comp, which was fair but reasonable, but a no-go from me. Instagram exchanges typically being, again, because they boast about their age in their bio or because there's pictures of them being young adults, that we can stereotype this demographic, or really not even stereotype, but criticize this demographic of sliding up, saying HM or best or need to be lower, or just very um, sentence fragments, and not complete sentences. I think it's just out of congeniality and good business and treating people like adults and not objects, and not anyone is entitled to anything. It's generally good business practice or good human to human interactions, because that's what business is, human to human interactions. You definitely see a lot more of it on Instagram, maybe because it's the more popular platform, maybe because the requirement to form complete sentences weeds out all these people from Twitter and makes it more of an adult website, and that the kids can sit at the kids table and the maxes can sit at the Max and Tommy table.
The Max
But
and Tommy table. That's a good place to sit. That's a good place to sit.
yeah, the seating is very exclusive. And both of us have microphones and we talk about sports calls all day. Most people call that heaven. Some people call that a full-time job.
Well, Max, I do want to bring up the fact that you posted a picture on Twitter of 24 different one of ones, all basketball cards.
Oh, I did?
Um,
I did
or
do that.
not all basketball cards. One football card and one F1 card in there. But what's the deal? Are you just lurking on one of one eBay listings right now, or
I'm
but
just doing some cute, silly little lurking. I've been trying to target different markets or places. Of course, one of ones are open to interpretation, and of course, sourcing is always the most difficult aspect. But I mean, I'll pretty much I mean, it's a public comp, so I don't really care that much, and I will fight tooth and nail, just like I'm fighting tooth and nail against this invisible strongman that I'm fighting right now. But I bought my Puka Nakua Kaboom, my green Kaboom 101 off REA, which is almost entirely vintage auction site. I have friends at REA. If you're a friend of me and they're at REA, then I say hi, because I love the REA Twitter group of people. They're very fun. But that being said, the Puka Nakua Green Kaboom, why would you put, again, I'm questioning the consigner, not the website or anyone else. Why would you put a big modern card on a big vintage website? It's like ordering Mexican food at the Italian restaurant that's cooked by Chinese people. Just stick to the Italians making the Italian food and pick an Italian dish. Just think with your mind. But
that's a good point though, Max. You do often bring up where people auction cards is very important to how they sell.
yeah,
So good little tidbit there for people looking to make some good deals.
yeah, and I've received some offers at or around where I was looking for, and I'm probably going to pull the trigger on one of them in the next week or two, and I'm going to move it for profit, and we move. But that card, that being said, is just an example of, well, it's salesmanship. It's, well, did this card actually reach full market value? And in with one of ones where there's only one of them, you can use the somewhat tangent parallels to decide if it is or isn't. But yeah, the overall theme with one of ones is that they're a little bit for debate. They're a little bit not, because like all the flawless Bill Russells, you have other Bill Russell one of ones to compare to, or like in the Julius Randle, you have another Julius Randle black one of one to compare to, or in the case of the Keegan Murray black finite, I have the Shaden Sharp that I can compare to, but it also kind of isn't, and there's subjectivity, and that's what spices them up, that makes them a little fun. Fun fact on the Quentin Grimes Immaculate Laundry Tag 101, there's a dual laundry tag of Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes, both both cards being rookie cards, but of course that being a dual rookie card, and it sold for $750. So I kind of just stickered my grinds that yeah, that's $750, I guess. Not firm at that number, but that was also before Miles McBride became the face of the Knicks bench. But with all things considered, I think that adds some of the spice and some of the fun involved.
I definitely see that you're like buying Knicks players, though. I know you're still trying to make money on them, but how does it feel to be in the lucky collector mode right now?
Yeah, I think it's just been my natural hunting of one of ones. And I think when I've seen a Julius Randle one of one, it's made me more keen on it just because I just out of being a Knicks fan, I can genuinely and in good faith say that he's a good player and that sometimes moving it to New York's Knicks player basis, sometimes I'm not. But I think again, it's just been my bias to thinking that he's a good player. And I now realize that I have three of them in this picture. And like I have two Jamal Murrays, but in the case of that, I was just able to get them at a good price. But I try not to discriminate too much. I think it just again depends on good ethical salesmanship, and that if you think the player is true and legitimate. Like I have a Drew. I don't know why have a few of these immaculate laundry tag one of ones that all look almost identical. I think some of it being that I think they're relatively cheap relic one of one, especially with some of these being gamer player used, and they're on the cheaper end relative to your huge patch or your logo man. But as long as there's definitely a balance to it, because on one hand, if you have a more expensive card, it's usually a much better card, but you have to find the buyer on that. But on the converse, if you have a cheaper one of one, it's still one of one, and still in most cases an average-ish player or an above average player. So the demand is there from the cheaper card standpoint.
That's one of ones are something we've talked about a lot. So I appreciate you giving a refresher on why you like to buy them. But I just saw so many one of ones in one picture. You got it. I'm always intrigued at what you're buying. But I did see that you submitted. Did you submit a grading submission to Beckett?
I did recently complete two Beckett grading orders, one entirely of two Connor Bedard cards. But yes, I've done the impossible and I've submitted to Beckett.
Why? What? Why, dude? Why are you doing that? I saw that Beckett graded like 14,000 cards last month, which is like I think an all-time low for them.
Really, that's pretty funny. So this was submitted through $40 Beckett, which I don't think is $40 anymore. I think it's like $25 or $30. But 1 month turnaround Beckett. I try to target cards, or rather inadvertently salvage cards, not in a doctoring way, but in a financial way. Cards that I found them, they're PSA 9s. There's something I try to think about getting them the PSA 10s, but there's an aspect about them to where I just don't think it'll happen.
That's fair enough. I did wait before I move on to some other stuff that went on this
Oh, I didn't know
weekend.
if you wanted me to break it down.
Well, yeah, tell the people what you graded real quick and how they turned out.
Yeah, so I think it was like an 11-ish card order, give or take. Half of these were RCR 95s, but half of them also just went through the trials and tribulations of being in my possession, which means going to grading companies many, many times. I had two 2018 Topps Chrome update refractors of Shohei Ohtani numbered to 250. It's a relatively high PSA 10 rate. Both were PSA 9s, but both had different kind of surface issues that, in my interpretation, were like manufacturer defects. And that when I looked at other PSA 10s, or when I looked to the best of my ability, I couldn't find these surface defects on PSA 10s, as well as these surface defects being to the right of Otani, right in the background, and you could just see this kind of white mark. So I didn't want to gamble, or nor didn't try to, which is a rare situation. I usually gamble at least once or twice. I sent them straight to Beckett RCR. They both 9.5, and then they both returned to me as 9.5. So that was a two PSA 9 to Beckett 9.5 bumps. Another was a 2018 Bowman's Best Ronald Acuna Jr. gold autograph. The story about this one is a little bit funny. I think I sent this to PSA as a PSA 9, I think 3 or 4 times. It definitely was a high amount. Came back a 9 every single time. I think came back an 8 once. But at one point I'm like, this card should 10. This card should 10. And I was dying on that hill, maybe a little bit irrationally, but I was dying on that hill. Sent it to Beckett to grade once, and it came back a Beckett 9 with 0.5 away. It was a 959, 959. And I was at a card show, and I think the raw comp was like 650. And I'm like, dude, I'll move it for 6. It's a Beckett 9. It's not raw. It's 0.5 away. And I think I got one guy who was just staunchly hitting me 500, 500, at a show, and I was really negotiating myself out of it. I'm like, it's like, oh, PSA 9 to this, or maybe it was PSA 9 sale. I don't remember. But I'm like, this is 0.5 away. This is in theory, and I know sometimes in execution it isn't, but in theory, that should be better than a PSA 9. And like, I know this card is a gem. I've had a history with her, baby. And so after that show, the person did not get it 600, and I think I just pulled it out of my showcase, brought it to Dallas, RCR'd it, 9.5'd, and then I sent it in a sub, and it retained its Beckett 9.5, and it's finally in its gold label. So that's very fun.
If you're a card that gets bought by Cards Max, you better be ready to go on an absolute journey in life through different grading companies.
And I like, if you're one of my figurative disciples, everyone's on equal playing field. But of course, I love teaching ball to some people than others. I know Nicholas Sostak, Mr. Stack in Sports, has delved in. Some people on the podcast know him, some people don't. He's a former guest. He's a great buyer, dealer, content creator in the Chicago area. But I've spoken with him on and off, and he's really dipped his toe, pivoting away from buying and selling in a margin game to buying and grading, just because of it's way less time intensity. And you also like double your money instead of making like 5-10%. So there's that. And he put up a 2022 downtown on his story. And I've been cooking 2022 downtown basketball. I've been killing it. But I'm like, I immediately make an offer. And he's like, it's sold already. And I'm like, no. You should be grading this card. Obviously not telling him to back out of the deal, but telling him, no, this is a learning moment. I sent him a screenshot of like the Luka Doncic 2022 downtown grading sheet, and it has like a 65 or a 70% gem rate. And I'm like, you grade decent from now on. And he's like, okay. I'm not as submissive, but like very keen on that. Oh, these are grading. These are 2022 downtowns NBA. We grade them.
We grade them. People, the longtime listeners, do remember the Josh Giddey downtown era of you.
Oh yeah, me whipping out 3 Josh Giddey downtowns. Some beautiful, some not. I think I talked about either on my Twitter feed or whatever, or last time on the podcast, that I had that 2022 Stephen Curry's downtown had like 13 graded and 1 PSA 9. There's now another PSA 9, and it was also me, but on a different Steph Curry. But that 1 PSA 9 that I graded, I was the sole 9 in the pop report or something. It just gems today. So I feel right and I feel vindicated, and that hypes me up and makes me go crazy, that I feel right in my data and that the numbers matter. But yeah, I'm going on a refractor rant here because downtowns do refract, but it's all in the numbers. It's all in the data. And I want as many listeners, even you, to listen to the data and grade the card that the data suggests that you could, even if it has edge issues that all the other copies of the card have.
All right, well, first of all, Max, I always appreciate it when you bless the listeners with knowledge that can help them make money.
Yeah.
But
I'll go over one more card from the Beckett sub because it's a little interesting.
All right, and then I got one other card I want to talk about.
Great. So again, I think this is like an 11 or 12 card order in general, but this is, in my opinion, one of the more interesting ones. It is a 2023 Finest rookie design variation gold mini diamond autograph of Adley Rutschman. So again, I know that was a mumbo jumbo, but 2023 Finest rookie design variation. That's part of the rookie autograph subset, but it's kind of like an insert subset rather than the traditional Finest autographs. So insert subset, although I think the traditional rookie parallels have this as well, the autos. I originally submitted this to PSA, and I'm trying to find the actual name of the parallel, and it is not a PSA sheet. I dig through Cardboard Connection. This gold mini diamond parallel is also not on Cardboard Connection. I had to find other copies of it on eBay for other players in order to even understand what the technical name of this parallel is. This is gold mini diamond, and that I mentioned, it is out of 5. The only sale on Adley Rutschman has been me buying this card. So I sent it out to PSA. PSA did not grade it. They said no spec, no info, do not grade, which is a
What?
little rare. But that mean, yeah, their research, which makes sense. It is not on a formal checklist apparently, which confirms what I was doing in my digging. I don't know how these were distributed. I don't know if these, and I don't think anyone cares about these either.
Yeah, I was gonna
Red or
say
five is your
you're
out of
you're
five.
you're walking the real tightrope of the ding to dollar ratio with that one.
Yeah, and like I can't say it's peak dankness, especially since it's rookie design variation. But I'm thinking, okay, I think it's kind of clean. I'm gonna go sub it anyway. So that's why it was in the Beckett stack, and it went to Beckett, and it got a BGS 9. I think it was like a firm 9, like not one that was close to a 9.5. But I'm like, okay, cool. At least the card is slabbed, and at least I can sell it for maybe higher or lower than what it was originally comping for. If I get lucky, who knows? But that definitely stuck out to me as an interesting card because I don't think I've ever owned a modern card, a card released in the past year that is like a legitimate card that received a no spec, no info, do not grade from PSA. And to the best of my, you know, searching or scavenging through checklists, that I can't find any checklist info on this either. But Beckett did slap the card.
Yeah, I was gonna say Beckett had something. So a rare Beckett win. You mentioned when you were discussing Nick's Stack and Sports' strategy, the potential for making lots of money on a card when you grade it from raw to grade. I see you're buying Wembanyama Cherry Blossoms, Max. What's going on?
Singular Wembanyama Cherry Blossom. But this was one that I like. I try not, of course, not to pat myself on the back, but I try not to like celebrate the successes until they actually come. So I think I've owned this card raw for about a month. And it wasn't until I saw a post by the collectibles guru at Eric Whiteback, which is not to be confused with Ben Haynes, who was previously on our podcast, as Ben Haynes has sold the Eric Whiteback account and is not the Eric Whiteback account and the collectibles guru account is under new ownership. But it wasn't until the collectibles guru posted a picture saying, "Wow, Les Sports Cards," or whoever the breaker was, just hit 2 Victor Wembanyama Cherry Blossoms out of their recent breaks. This card's estimated value is XYZ, and a PSA 10 would be this. Do we think they're going to grade well? And I'm like, okay, this is entertaining enough bait. So I just quote tweeted it. I attached a picture of my raw cherry blossom from Wembanyama and commented mid.
No, I just want to hear you got it's a PSA 10 now. So what the
Yeah,
fuck
and
happened?
to the that tweet was mostly for the amusement of me, but a few other people found that amusing as well. My attempted dunk that really was just like a layup. I can't really say dunked on the guy. This is I just had like a behind the back Euro step layup with my arm around my back and then doing a lefty finish as well. I'm sometimes called Kyrie DeMarco, but yeah, the QC is interesting. I know I've yapped about it on this podcast before, but I just anecdotally like the true golds and the black golds have had the worst condition of what I've seen relative to other hobby parallels from this year's Prizm. And I've noticed it in my gem rate as well. I knew it before when I'm sending the cards out. I'm like, these golds have some surface issues that some of the others don't have. But even with that, the cherry blossom is from choice. I don't know if that has a correlation in the manufacturing process, but when I first got it, I'm like, this is going to gem. I don't see defects that would suggest it would otherwise would not gem. And at first, I got a bit worried. This is the first time I've ever submitted a card at the walkthrough or higher level. And I think I sent like 2 other PSA orders at the same time. And the 2 other PSA orders got like checked in as like arrived, and this premium 1 order was just at processing. While all my other orders I shipped at the same time was at we're at arrived, and I'm like, ooh, did this card get lost? There's no way. Has to be special because it's a walkthrough, right? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it went from research and ID to I think it went from research and ID to assembly and a half, which to Tommy, I know you don't grade, and some other people don't grade the assembly stage. There's the assembly stage with the blue, where it's just like another step. And there's the assembly stage with the check mark, and it just doesn't progress to the next step. It's just assembly and a check mark. And that's just part of all traditional PSA orders. So it went from essentially every step until grade's ready in a day. And Then I wake up the next morning. I think I receive an email 9:30. Usually if you get upcharged, you get no, actually no, always. Always if you get upcharged, you get an email saying that you need to authorize the upcharge. And I go to my email, I get the rare, we have a receipt for your PSA order at $850. And I'm like, this is an adult podcast. Shit fuck, didn't gem, no upcharge. I think this would my range was up to $25,000. I'm like, this is over $5,000 card if it gets a PSA 10. And then I check the PSA app, and I say, oh, PSA, I see, ooh, PSA 10. Let's go, baby. Let's get hype. Let's go, brother. Whatever the kids are saying these days. That was me. That was me AF.
Dude.
And
Yes.
it dawned upon me that in most cases, PSA won't levy an upcharge on you if there isn't a completed sale for the PSA 10. So at this point, now there's a PSA 10 sale, but at this point there was a PSA 9 that had just finished at Golden for 16,000. And no matter what, like I couldn't just do walkthrough. I had to do premium one, which is a step ahead walkthrough, because no matter what, I'd be upcharged to at least the level of the PSA 9 because that is completed sale. But if it's a PSA 10, there's no PSA 10 sale. You can't just assume on a multiplier if it's a few $100 higher or not. So I was relieved and remembered this or re-epiphanized this epiphany. I took my PSA 10 and then I was happy for the rest of the day. And even now, today, which is like a week later. And I got it in hand today. And here it is in my hands, in hand.
That is a beautiful card, Max. I'm very hyped for you. That's a huge win. I feel like I've been
Which part
hyping
I
up
own
the cherry
now?
blossoms. They're pretty sick looking, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm a sucker for the vets.
Have you been buying up the vets?
Sometimes when I can. I bought a Shy Gilgeous Alexander, and like it wasn't submittable, sadly. But I think that's part of the fun is just like, and especially with more like the bulk traditional graders, they just find sick cards and they turn them into slabs and PSA 10s, and they're like, wow, I never expect that as a slab. But I mean, that's been a little bit of my quest with some of the veterans. Um, on my PSA order today, I pretty much bat 1,000 on the new Prizm. I think this might have been my only card. I've had one, or rather, I've had one recent card from Prizm that received the PSA 9, and it was a Kawhi Leonard gold out of 10, which was fitting for me. I don't think I haven't. I think every card that I've submitted that hasn't been a gold or a black gold has 10, and that has everything to do with the quality control and nothing to do with PSA ranking grades. The quality control in black golds and golds is demonstrably worse from my anecdotes. And that doesn't matter if it's like the $5,000 cards, even though I haven't owned a $5,000 card, but like the five to $1,000 cards, like the Kawhi Leonard, or like the $30 cards. Like had like a Buddy Hield I was going to submit. And it's like a $30 card as a true gold. But I'm like, oh, there's like some stuff I don't like on this on the surface. So I'm like, thank you. Next.
Hey, dude, you got to give it to Panini though. If everything else seems to have pretty good quality control this year, that's a green flag.
Yeah, it's definitely, and not to loop other people in, but I know Eric Whiteback, as Ben Haynes said and remarked on Topps black parallels being more interesting in part because by nature the whitening of quarters demonstrates more strongly because of the black perimeter of the card and black border of the card. And he received some backlash because the argument was cards should come out of the factory gem mint, and they should, but I think the normal distribution around a different median, with the median being centered around an 8 rather than a 9, and the 10 being reserved for the top 5% or the rightmost tail, rather than it being in like that really Q3 or like, top 25%, or I guess that'd be Q4. Part of my statistics being rusty. But that I think that's at least an interesting argument and at least makes the 10s more sought after. I haven't noticed it in the Cherry Blossom. I've noticed it in other parallels though, where the quality control is so good that 80% of them, or more accurately, 65 to 70% of them of the cards submitted of a certain player, like CJ Stroud's Blue Ice, biggest player, biggest parallel, 75% gem rate, give or take, or 70% gem rate. And it's made the PSA 10's value deflated. And when that's across the entire product, like we're in almost all cases, Prizm is a 2.5x, or at least it used to be. And part of it due to a not bullish market, part of it due to it grading so easily, the multiplier has been weaker because of it. And I think that's just interesting. I'm always in favor of quality control. I remember there was a stretch in 2020, right when grading was reopened from PSAs closing down because of backlog, that and I think Anthony Edwards's and definitely LaMelo Ball's is PSA 10 Prizm PSA 10 rate on Silver Prizm rookie cards was, I believe, 3%. That's
Yeah,
insane.
that product I remember was like historically low gem rate.
Yeah,
And
and then
Max, I will, yeah,
the
I
following
am
year
gonna
was also very bad. I was just say that the following year had lots of print lids and off centering, and I didn't think we'd ever come back from that, which was 2 or 3 years ago. But we have, and good. We have good quality control.
nice. Well, enough grading rants. I need to get your thoughts real quick because we haven't talked about this even anecdotally. A couple new products that have come out or been announced since our last episode. People do like to hear our thoughts on the new developments. One product that I am hyped about that I think has been in hand now for a week or so for people is Heritage Mini. So it seems like this is the first year ever where Topps put out a product that's Heritage Mini, where like the cards are all mini size, like their normal Topps Mini product. Um, I guess it's a callback because I don't know the total history on this. I don't know ball when it comes to 1975 Topps, but I do know that there are many 1975 Topps cards that are out there. I don't know how they were distributed. Maybe I think they might have been a complete set thing or something, but I believe they're the first time Topps ever did mini versions of cards of like their normal flagship card. So they put out a product that is just Heritage Mini, and I'm kind of hyped about that. I think that's kind of sick, Max. What's your thoughts on that?
Did you order any boxes for personal?
No, but I did enter my first break in 2 years,
Okay,
so that's pretty big. I feel
I
like,
cannot wait to find out how that resulted.
yeah, me too.
My thoughts are I generally love online exclusives. I don't love that a lot of stores got allocation and got it in hand for release day, and that entirely dismantles the term online exclusive. I think online exclusives have thrived because of low print runs and them being so collector focused that the niches and nuances of it can be enjoyed at a scarcity that collectors truly love while not damaging the wallet. And sometimes it correlates to resale value, and sometimes it very much doesn't. And that's really an afterthought because most of the bigger hits allow you to break even more than traditional wax. I'm a fan of it from that aspect. I don't love overprinting of it. I think mini cards are generally unloved unjustifiably. I think I think SRP was what, $40 a box?
Yeah, I was gonna say this seemed like a product that was like an easy buy and becomes $100 a box product in like a few months, pretty easily. I
Yeah,
think.
my favorite thing about Archive Snapshot Signature Series is that for the longest time, I think it still is a $25 SRP, and it's a guaranteed autograph. And I believe all autographs are on card, and
Mhm.
$25 for gambled and on card autograph is unparalleled in this scene. Even if it's Luis Arias' third year veteran autographs, even if the name's bad, you can at least gamble with it, and that's something that is not possible in other products. I know the autographs aren't guaranteed. I think they're once in a few boxes, and in a few, I mean there are definitely pack odds. I just don't know them offhand, but they're not guaranteed every box. And given the prominence of real one autographs, and I think the checklist and the parallels, I didn't want to rip it just because of the condition sensitivity of 1975 tops, or obviously the remake of the black borders make it traditionally very condition sensitive, and the lack of promise of possible hits made me stay away. But I think if I had more enthusiasm for Heritage, I'd be all over this.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm interested to see. The one thing is I wish that they made it chrome inserts for it. Like I wish there was chrome parallels in the mini. That would be pretty sick. But hyped to see that product. I feel like that's a pretty easy win for Topps there, and I'm glad they took advantage of it. There was another big announcement in the last couple of weeks, Max, that we have not discussed either, which is the fact that they're rolling out a massive line of basketball and football products now from Topps, including Topps Chrome Basketball coming back, with Wembanyama Superfractor Auto Rookie incoming. I think they seems a little ridiculous to me that this is coming out after the season ends and you're putting it out kind of towards the end of 2024 and calling it a 2023-24 product. I think that's kind of scammy. I haven't. It seems like they're doing way too many products. It seems like they want to put out like 7 or 8 individual basketball releases without a license. I think that's extremely ambitious, and it seems like they're just trying to milk this Wembanyama hype as much as they can. Is that track with what you're thinking about it too?
Many would say that Victor Wembanyama is an alien, but I would propagate that he is a real human being and that real human beings need to take their time in order to write their name. My favorite thing in second grade was learning how to write traditional handwriting, but then in third grade, they threw cursive at me and I would spiral. And they continued to plague me verbally in how I hold my pencil with 4 fingers, my 3 fingers and my thumb. And that's just how I write. I've used so many pencil grips in my heyday of second and third grade. It was truly one of my handicaps, but I've grown past it in my adult life. Victor Wembanyama very much has as well, but he cannot play basketball games and write his name at the same time. He has to dribble a basketball after all. So I think that's why it makes sense to have the late season release or the postseason release or the off-season release if you're not in the playoffs. Wah, wah. I don't like the milking of autographs, and we've seen it with CJ Stroud, and we've seen it with every single achievement Victor Wembanyama has. He has a top style autograph commemorating it, and Caitlin Clark was very much flirting with that point as well. I think Topps Chrome Superfractors and Topps Chrome Parallels will stand the test of time, and that this photo used for Wembanyama's autograph is as close as you can get to being in a Spurs uniform without actually putting a Spurs logo on it. I think the collectors will enjoy it. I don't think it'll be cheap, but I think it has its place, and fanatics can be appropriately chastised for many, 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 many things. And that was not one of my original takes on Michael Rubin and the Fanatics team. But when you're creating a product with LeBron James and Victor Wembanyama on-card autographs, that shouldn't be complained about.
No, I agree. So I'm gonna wait to see what the checklist looks like and what the cards actually look like in real life before making too many judgments. But I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of news that happened since we last spoke. But Max, it's time for sports card buys of the week. I have a couple that I really, 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 really am excited to talk about with you because I feel like it kind of hits on a lot of things that we have discussed, but I also haven't spent this much money on cards in a little bit. So I am gonna start off here with a few cards that I'm gonna grab real quick. So I got sent by a friend by friends who don't collect cards. I got sent a link that I had never seen before, and it's not something that happens often, if at all, ever. Which was a Boo Buie collab with this company called Pilot 24. And listeners of the podcast understand that Boo Buie is Northwestern's all-time leading scorer in basketball. He has cards in 2021 Bowman U, which was an unlicensed basketball product. So he doesn't have any cards in a Northwestern uniform until now. This company, Pilot 24, has done like a few different cards for a few different random NIL guys. But basically, the cards are RPAs. They are autographed by Boo Buie, and they include a piece of his headband that he wore when he broke the all-time scoring record against Michigan, a game I was at. So it's a relic from a game I was at, autographed. It's only licensed in a Northwestern uniform cards out there. They were put on 7-day auction on this company's website, which I thought was extremely bold and random. You're missing a lot of SEO value from eBay. I feel like you might as well, but I guess you're missing some fees from them. So you're like, the company's kind of rolling the dice. I DM'd the company and it was just like, hey, like what's up? And it seems like the guy might be interested in talking to me. I want to know a little bit more of what he's going on. But I did buy 3 of them. So I forgot to mention that they only made 10. So there's 10, and then each card has a different autograph on it. So each card has like a slightly different version of his autograph, including like this one says Daniel, quote unquote, Boo Buie. One of them just says like Buie. Some say like Boo Buie on them. So it's kind of interesting. Like each card has a different autograph and they're serial numbered out of 10. So has a little bit of funness to it. I was not going to miss out on this opportunity to own one of these, so I bid on 3 of them, and I won all 3 of them. There wasn't a ton of bidders on it. I saw like one car, one of them had like 10 bids on it, but who knows how many actual individual bidders there were. I'm hyped to own these because it's real game worn shit. It's his only like certified, licensed card. It also is like a partnership between the company and Boo Buie, meaning that he actually is getting a lot more of the revenue off the card than whatever Bowman U shit you're buying. So that's pretty hype. I wanted to support not only a new company trying to get into the NIL card game, which we've sort of talked about recently, or kind of always. We're kind of discuss college cards. But I kind of love the entrepreneurial aspect of a new card company coming in, making something cool, very distinctly different from what's out there. But yeah, I'm hyped about this. I bought 3 of them. They came really fast. I hope that I get more information out of this guy if he hits me up. He was like said something about wanting to reach out to me to talk about it. They did accept my Instagram collaboration invite when I posted about it, so you got to respect that. That was a card that I was really hyped about. I did get a card from our friend Gaby Card Stacks as well. He sent me a card. He said, "I sent you something," and that's always intriguing when someone sends you a message like that. And that card was a Ken Griffey Jr. Power Deck that he found. So Gaby clearly doesn't remember that I love Power Deck. Power Deck being an Upper Deck release from the late '90s that the cards are CDs, and you put the CD in your computer, and it plays a highlight from the player. There is actually autographs as well in the set. So if you ever find loose packs out there, the cards there are out of 50 on card quote unquote Ken Griffey Jr. autographs from this set, which is pretty sick. But those are a couple cards I got in the last few weeks that I'm pretty hyped about. Let me quickly check my eBay to make sure I didn't buy anything else that I would want to bring up. But I haven't been spending a ton of money on cards except for the Boo Buies that I cashed out on. But Max, how are you feeling about those? I feel pretty hyped. My one eBay buy that I'd want to bring up is I bought a 2019 Topps opening day Juan Soto red foil for $15, which is pretty sick. That's a gold cup of Juan Soto, his first opening day card. No sarcasm intended. So that was a team color match, pretty sick. And yeah, I've been kind of low key on eBay lately, Max, because I cashed out on the Boo Buies, but hyped about those. Hyped about NIL cards that are innovative, that I don't have to support a company like Topps or Fanatics every single time that I want to buy a sports card. What did you buy, Max? What are your thoughts?
I really enjoy that you have found centerpieces for your Boo Buie collection, and that Boo Buie is a player that perfectly encapsulates your times as a college frat lord, while also intertwining it with collecting. While we're cutting that out.
No, we don't have to cut that out. College frat lord, though. Jesus Christ, dude. Oh God, what did you buy, Max? What did you buy?
Okay, well, I hope I didn't just do a Vil graphs and just just like tell you, are we cutting that right at the wrong part? But when that part will be cut out, we love Adam. Yeah, I have one buy this week that I think is most interesting and gets into the game of autographs that I usually don't intertwine myself with. I bought a 1963 Topps Willie Mays. Just kidding. It's 1968. And it has a very bold black big autograph, something that I'm sure will make it makes the card look great. It's a tad off center. I think it looks really good. I think it's a slam dunk 10 auto grade. This didn't even receive an auto grade from Beckett. This was just a Beckett authentic slab. And my goal with it is to get a numerical grade on the card and the autograph. I don't grade vintage cards ever, and I definitely cannot identify mid grade cards. I think this is anywhere from a 3 to a 5 grading wise and condition wise. That's my best guess. And I think if I'm anywhere on that spectrum, I'm in the green on it. But I paid strong relative to other copies of it that were 1 or 2 conditions or 9 autographs, because
Mhm.
I liked that this had a big, bold autograph, and autographs of Hall of Fame greatest of all time players are not the easiest to come by. And I think this could possibly benefit from being slabbed numerically both in the card condition and the autograph condition.
Nice. Well, that was an absolute curveball for me at the end of this episode, throwing in the fact that you
Hey, at
thought
least it's not cursive. That would spook me out.
Yeah, if you write in cursive to Max, like, don't even try.
I'm illiterate. I cannot read. Or my
Don't
own handwriting.
Yeah, write the name Jalen Brunson in cursive, Max.
Yeah, and then it will turn out Jalen Burnson and the paper disintegrates and burns.
All right, well, I'm gonna go let you watch the next game, Max. Thank you for chatting it up with me. This was fun. We'll be back soon. We definitely need to we're gonna have Will back on to talk about collect at some point. We have a few other guests in the oven, but wow, not the oven. I don't know if that's really the right way of putting it, but
Better cooking.
Yeah, I want to hear. We want to hear more from our listeners. So, like, if whatever you guys like or whoever you guys thought were good guests, we want to bring them back on for the Refractor Rants era. We definitely got to have our boy Mitch back on. I know Playboy Cards has been industry climbing, and we got to check back in with him since he was one of the first guests like 2 years ago, and we haven't checked in since. So we got to bring him back. There's other people, so feel free to reach out. We love everybody who listens to this podcast. We appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your week to listen and hang out with us, talk about which cards have been on journeys with Max to the grading companies. Max, I'm excited to have you start traveling again, checking in on the card shows that are going on around the country. But what are your parting words for people here?
I hope the Refractor Rants podcast has been an apt page in your book for the day.
And go Knicks.